For reasons I really don't know, it looks like Zoom did not save the recording for our 278 class for November 1st. So I guess the only option I have is to make a video of what we covered. So here we are in our content for this week. Let me refresh this thing and get back to where we belong. Module 6, Basic Router and Switch Setup. As I look through the shell for this week, I see I have a set of notes here called Basic Configuration Notes, and then a video explanation of PKA files. So let's talk about what those are. As you go through the labs, Lab 5.2 for example, and Lab 4.2, you'll need to perform several commands that we didn't cover all of them in the previous week. Now, many of the commands we did cover in the previous week, but many new commands are in here. And so in the basic configuration notes, let's go to that. You'll see a list of topics here that different commands that you'll need to be able to do. The enable command, the configure terminal command, and so on. Some of these I know you've done before, but for example, you've never done this command, IP version 6 unicast routing, or service password encryption. I don't believe we did that. IP domain name, I don't believe we did that, and so on. So this is a list of those commands, and then a short video showing how each one is used and what it's used for. And in these things I talk about what that's used for. So you have this to fall back on in order to learn about those new commands. These are not the same videos that you had last week. So for example, there was a video I believe on the enable command last week, but I don't believe it was actually in the enable command. It was under modes or something like that last week. Let's pick one that I think we did do last week. So here's the banner MOTD. I believe we covered that last week. So this is not the same video. This is a different video. It's just a short summary of what it does and then how to do the command. So you have this thing available to you as you go through the lab. Let's back up now. And let's take a look at these labs. So this first lab is a packet tracer lab, and it's a PKA file. There is a little explanation here of PKA files, but let me go through it here in this video as well. I'm going to open this thing up, Lab 5.2, and one of these is just the instruction file, the other one is the actual PKA file. So this is going to be the PKA file. Let's open that. And this will open up in Packet Tracer. It will take a moment. Well, it's working on it. Yeah, while it's doing this, I really don't know why it didn't make that recording. This is kind of irritating. This is the first time it's ever done that to me. Alright, let's make sure that I'm logged in correctly. I'm just going to log in as a guest here. And it says not responding. There it goes, finally. Alright, oh, it's still there. Still not responding. There. Now once I'm here, I have two windows down here. One has the topology, and then the other one is the instructions. So I want to make sure I get both of those up here on the screen. And for the instructions, I'm going to click top, and that will keep this up on top. Or I can also click dock if I want to, and dock it over here on the side. So here's the instructions. And let's see if this window will move over just a hair so that it's all there. All right. You see down here this completion percentage. Right now it says 0% complete. So this is about the PKA file. This thing will score automatically as I go through the various activities in this set of instructions. So first I've got my topology table here, or I should say my addressing table, and then the objectives and background, and here's the actual instructions down here. Configure devices and verify connectivity. So let's just walk through a few of these and get you started on it. The first one is configure the IP version 4 and IP version 6 addresses on PC3. Now notice that some of these PCs already have them. So for example, PC1, if I click PC1 and I go over to desktop and then IP configuration, you'll see that I already have the addresses filled in here. So we want to do this for PC3. So I'll click PC3, desktop, IP configuration. And now I need to refer to the addressing table as it says here in order to figure out what to put on this thing. So I'm going to go to PC3 down here. Let's open that back up. This doesn't stay. Oh, I can make it stay on top if I want to. There's a little button here to do that. So I need to set the static IP version 4 address, and we have that right here. If I scroll up, here's the IP and prefix and then the default gateway. So here's the IP version 4 address, 10.04.10. 10.04.10. And I'll just click out of that box. And you'll notice it already says 1% complete. This has a /24, and right now we have 255.0.0.0. That would be a /8. It automatically put in a /8 because it saw that it had a 10 address. It says, oh, that's a Class A address, so it suggested a Class A subnet mask. However, I know that I want a /24. This is why you needed to learn the slashes, right? This is why you needed to learn subnetting and how IP addressing works, because you actually use it in the field. Next, I need the default gateway, and the default gateway is 10.0.4.1. 10.0.4.1. I'll click outside of that. I'm already 5% done. Next, I need an IP version 6 static address. I want to make sure the static radio button is checked. And the IP version 6 address is 2001 DB8 colon ACAD colon 4 double colon 10, and then the prefix length here is a 64, so we'll put the 64 over here. And the default gateway is actually the link local address on the router that this thing attaches to. So we'll put the default gateway address. FE80 double colon 2 colon A. We'll click outside of that field and we are 11% done. So you can see this thing scores as we go, and I just need to close this thing back up when I'm done, and that one is complete. Let's go back down here. I'm not going to go ahead and do PC4 as well. I do want to remind you though, where is the default gateway? Well, for PC3, if it didn't actually tell me what the default gateway was, I could just trace this line back to the first router it comes to, and the IP address on that interface is the default gateway for that PC. In the case of the IP version 4 address, it's just the IP version 4 address. In the case of an IP6 address, it is the link local address that is assigned on that router's interface. All right, let's go down here to the configure router, and some of these you may know already, and some of them you may not know already, but it doesn't actually give you the commands in most cases. It just says do this, and so that's why you might need to refer back to that set of notes that I was showing you a little while ago. On router R2, Open a terminal, move to privileged exec mode. Now you'll notice that router 1, by the way, is locked out. If I click that, configuration is locked. So I'm going to click R2, and it said move to privileged exec mode. So I'll go to the command line, and I will move to privileged exec mode. I have to click return, and to get to privileged exec mode, it's enable. All right, I'm in privileged exec mode. Next, it says enter configuration mode. Okay. Configure terminal. That puts me there in global config mode. Assign a device name of R2 on the router. Well, if you don't remember how to do that, then you'll go back here to these notes that we had up earlier. Let's go back to module 6. And then the configuration notes. Again, some of these were already on last week's, but then there are a few added ones too. So what did we need to do? We needed to configure, let's see, a device name. So it turns out that in Packet Tracer, you do have this config tab here for configuring just some basic things like the display name and host name. You can even configure some other things here, serial interfaces and so on. But we're going to use the command line for everything in here. But one thing I do want you to note that on this config tab is this display name. And it's already set up the display name as R2. And notice, see this little white thing or yellow thing here? It says changing the display name in an activity may affect scoring. Don't change the display name because it may affect the scoring on in here. Now I've discovered that for some reason the scoring is already messed up in this thing as it is. I don't know why that is, but it could be that they didn't take this into account when whoever built it. Maybe it needs to say router in order for it to work. I don't know. Typically it does say router and they've changed it to R2. But you do get, if I go into that or point to it, it does give me that warning. So don't change the display name. And I can change the host name right here, but we always want to use the command line. So host name, capital R2. Always make sure when you're changing the names of things or using passwords and usernames, those are case sensitive. The commands themselves are not. So I need to make sure that that's capitalized there, R2. And you'll see that the host name changed to R2. If I went back to the configuration tab, you'll see that it changed the host name. It even told me what the command was that I used. But this is not live. I can't actually do commands from here. Back to the command line. Basically, you won't use the config tab very often unless you need to change a display name for some reason. There is a time, I should say, on servers, once in a while, you'll need to make a configuration change. All right. Assign device name. Configure C1SCO1234 as the encrypted privileged exec mode password. So remember that we don't want to be able to go into exec mode without a password, and we want that password to be encrypted. Well, what is the command to go into exec mode? Well, that's the enable command. And we, in order to make it encrypted, we will use enable secret. So let's try that out. Make sure this stays on top. Enable secret. And then again, I have to make sure I do this very carefully. Small c, a 1, small s, co, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I don't make sure I do these passwords correctly, then I have a problem in that I won't be able to get back into it. And I've seen more than one student have to redo their labs because somehow they locked themselves out. So be very, very careful. There's no double check on this thing, and there's no fixing it once you've messed it up. The other thing is, when you turn these things in, if I can't get into them because it's not the correct password, then I won't be able to grade your work. I know it's self-grading, but if it's not 100%, then I need to go in and check it manually. And this may not end up being 100% for reasons of, well, Packet Tracer just misscores sometimes on certain kinds of things. And I'll demonstrate that in just a little bit. So I've done that command. I'll just hit enter, and the enable secret is set. C1SCO1234. This is the last one I'm going to do for you in this video. It says set the domain name of the router to ccnalab.com. Now, in the notes that we came from back here, I explained this better, but what we're doing is we're setting up for using SSH. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to exit from this mode and then perform a show run. Let's enter, scroll down through here is the interfaces, and then down here you see three sections. LineCon 0, so these are all the settings on the console port. Line aux 0, these are all settings on the auxiliary port. And then line VTY. Well, VTY lines are just the regular ports on that router or switch. I would use this if I don't want to have to be physically at the switch in order to configure it. So, for example, let's say that I've got a router in a closet somewhere, a administrative closet in the server room, and I'm sitting in my office. Well, I've got a cable plugged into one of the ports in that router. It could be, say, a fast Ethernet 01. And that thing leads then through a switch back to my desk, and I can telnet to this switch or router and can configure it over telnet remotely from my desk. However, there's a problem. Telnet is plain text, and I don't want plain text. I want this to be encrypted. So rather than Telnet, I want to change this over to SSH, which is an encrypted form of Telnet. So in order to set that up, I need certain things. Let me close this again. I need to set up three things in global config mode to prepare to use SSH. I need to set up a domain name. In other words, this has to use the domain, the DNS system. The reasons why are complicated, but trust me, you need this domain name set up. And so we have to set up a domain name on this router. We also need a username and an encrypted password. It's username, secret, some username, and then secret, and then some password. We also need to generate our keys for our RSA encryption. So these three things are done in global config mode. And then down in the VTY section, once we go into VTY mode, we need to do two things to make SSH happen. Transport input SSH and login local. That tells it to log in using this username up here that we did in global config mode. So these are the 5 commands that you have to do in order to set up for SSH. 3 of them in global config mode, 2 of them in line configuration mode for the VTY line. So the first of those is this, setting the domain name of the router to ccnalab.com. So let's get back to config T, and now I'm going to set the domain name. So let's type domain name and then ccnalab.com. Now this is going to fail. It failed. I used the wrong command. I did this on purpose, of course. I didn't do it on purpose when I did the original Zoom session, but I thought I would reproduce it here. So here's what I would do in this case if I were in your situation. I go domain name. Well, okay, let's close that. Domain name, it did it wrong. So I would go to this video here, and I'll click that video and open it up. There are different. And let me go toward the end of this thing where I actually type the command. The first of those is the domain name. So the command for that is IP. Ah, there's the problem. IP domain name. With a dash in the middle. Domain. Okay, so now I know what I did wrong. Let's go back here again. It's IP domain name ccna-lab.com. So I have now set a DNS domain name on this router. That's typically in case I want to use this router as a domain name server. However, I also need that for setting up SSH. All right, I would continue through this thing. You can see I'm 17% complete right now. Let's say that I want to check and see how I'm doing. I'm going to click check results down here at the bottom. And then up here, you can't see it. Let me move this thing up under assessment items. And now you can see the things I've done correctly and the things I haven't done yet. So I've got the setup on PC3 all done. I've got a few of the items here under router 2. I haven't set up any console line stuff yet. And I haven't set up any ports yet, any interfaces on this thing yet. One of the things that it doesn't like to grade correctly is banner MOTD. Let's go ahead and put a banner on this thing and see if it grades me correctly. I'm going to close this. I'm going to use the X up in the upper corner. Up here, you can't see it very well. I'm going to use that to close this thing. And then back in here, I will type banner MOTD, keep off my grass. Well, that wouldn't be an official one, but keep off my grass. All right, I have set the banner, and let me double check that. I'm going to exit from this mode and do a show run. And let's just go down here to where the banner is. Sure enough, I've got the banner set up. Now I'm going to go back to check results. Go up to assessment items. And you'll see it still says that I haven't set the banner correctly. This seems to be a problem with this particular lab. I don't know what's causing the problem. It could be that whoever set it up didn't take into account this thing here. Maybe it still needs to say router in order for it to actually score correctly. I don't know. Let's close this and reopen it and see if that actually fixed the problem. No, it didn't. Okay, so I don't know what the problem is on here, and I haven't figured it out. But do be aware that some things Packet Tracer just will not score correctly. So if that happens, just turn it in as it is if you think that you've done it correctly. So say you're at 89% or something. You turn that in, and I'm going to open it up and manually check those things to make sure. So I'll click the check results as I go in here, and I'll click the assessment items, and it says, oh, banner MOTD isn't set up correctly. So then I'll go back in to your router, and I will manually check and see if the banner is set up, and if it is, I will credit you the points for that. This is one reason it's extremely important to make sure that you type all the passwords and everything correctly, because if you lock me out, I can't manually check it. And I've had many students who set the enable password and the console password incorrectly, and then it turns out that I have to give them a 0 until they fix it. And if they can't get in to fix it, then they have to redo the lab. So I just can't score what I can't see. And so that's just the way that works. All right, let's go back here to our module again. So I explain here, you've already seen these notes here, and then I explain these pKa files, the self-scoring things, and I've already done that here in this video as well. We've already taken a look at the basic router configuration. Let's look at the basic switch configuration lab. This one is a little bit different. I'll click the instruction file here. We'll open up the instruction file, and you'll see here, well, that's actually it in the background, but we'll see here that it's just a very simple lab. I ask you to create a Catalyst 2960 switch and to do these 10 things. So you'll go back to Packet Tracer. I'm going to go up to the top here and click File, New. No, I don't want to save my work. Okay, let's create that switch. Go down to Network Devices, over to Switches, 2960 switch. So there it is. And then it says to give that switch a host name of switch 1. Let's click there, click CLI, hit return to get started. Switch 1. Okay, I'm not in the right mode, so I have to be sure and get into enable mode and configure terminal mode, host name, switch 1, there, done. So I'm going to go through all 10 of those items in the instructions. Again, 6 and 7, make sure you do these exact, including the capital C in Cisco and small c in the word class. Otherwise, I won't know how to get into this thing, and I'll have to give you a 0, and then you'll have to come back and redo the lab or fix it and resubmit it, and that's a pain for both of us. So pay very close attention to those. Once we get done, and you turn this PKT file in through D2L, then I will manually go through and check all 10 of these things. I'm going to be making you a personalized video for your feedback that says, let's take a look and see if you did the host name. Let's take a look and see if you disabled DNS. Again, the video about disabling DNS is either in last week's introduction to iOS or it's in this week's set of videos. I don't remember which, maybe both. So how do I disable DNS? So I haven't given you actual commands here. I've just said make this happen, and then you have to recall how to do that or look it up if you can't discover how to do it. All right, let's go back again to our course. That's the basic switch setup. The next thing is this command summary, just like last week for Module 5. This time, let's go into that. Make a list of each new Cisco command you learned in the labs and notes this week in the following format. So this is the rest of this is identical to last week's. You do not have to include commands you already used in a previous command summary sheet. So, for example, enable show startup config. You already had those in Module 5's command summary, but now you won't need to do those, but you'll have a bunch of new commands. For example, crypto key and the domain name, things like that, that you'll need to put in your chart this time. And again, I've given you that command summary template that you can use to get started, just like you had last week. It's the same file. So you'll just put command summary and then put the week number, and then any new commands that you haven't already included in previous weeks. You'll do that each week in this class. Back to our module 6, using the breadcrumbs up here. We do have a quiz on basic router and switch configuration that will cover all those things we just did in the lab, and any commands that are in the command summaries. And then we do have our midterm, because this is halfway through the course, and it will cover everything 1 through 6. So it will include this stuff here, including this. Now the quizzes are set up so that there are typically 20 questions in the pool for each quiz. The first time you take that quiz, you see approximately 10 of them. And then if you take it a second time, you see approximately 5 more, because out of 20, you've already seen 10, and maybe half of those you'll see again, and maybe half of the ones left over you'll see again. So statistically, you'll have seen about 75% of the questions. These midterm exams have all of the same exact pools of questions that are in all the previous quizzes. So 75% of these you will have already seen. 25% of them approximately will be new to you. But you may notice on all of these quizzes, I don't give you the answers. Let's go into quiz setup here. I'm going to go to submission views. And you'll see that it says show all questions with user responses, but not the answers. So I don't give you the answers for a very simple reason. That is, if I did, all you'd have to do is write down or take a screenshot or something of all the ones that you missed, and you would have the answer in front of you without even knowing what the answer is on your own. So instead, after you take these quizzes, up in the upper right hand corner of each question is 1 out of 1 or 0 out of 1. If it's 0 out of 1, you missed that question, then you'll need to figure out what the answer is. Go back and research it, so that you can't just answer the questions on the midterm and not know. You don't even have to know the question, right? You just say, oh, look, this is number 1.5.2, and I know that the answer is this. Well, that you're not learning anything that way. So that's why I don't give you the answers on these. And I also don't give you the answers on the midterm. And the reason is because the same thing will happen in the final. I'll use the same pool for the entire course in the final. So that's why I don't give you the answers. All right, that's it for this week. If you have questions, be sure and send me an email or get my attention somehow, and I'll be happy to help. And I'm sorry that Zoom did not record this. I don't know. I know that it said recording, and I know that afterwards it said rendering, and then it just dropped it and quit, and I don't know why. So this will have to do in its place. Thank you so much for paying attention, and we'll see you later.